This lesson, we learn construction labor and materials management, and we have three learning objectives: describe labor law and organization in the U.S. construction industry, and we calculate the average hourly costs of labor, where you see what are the actually the labor the worker received compared to what the employer really paid for that hour of work. And the third objective, we explain the material management process and material type in construction. For this first lesson video, we go conceptually and use the problem two first to introduce with a different concept that may apply in problem two, and then you have the next video for solving problem one in this lesson. So the two major resources that we deal with in today's lesson is labor and material. Additionally, we have other type of material, as you recall, machine, equipment, money that will be required for any construction project. So in terms of the labor resource, the four elements that normally we have to look at carefully. The first one is labor organizations, whether the project need union or non-union workers, things like that. What are the law applied for the labor? What type of labor productivities that we consider, and that we already discussed, and actually you uh, address some of that portion in the semester project for this class. And labor cost, that is the purpose for the second objective that we do today, and we have a chance to apply that in problem one. In terms of the material management, the second most important resources for the project: labor, material, equipment, and money. So a few terms that I want to introduce before we go to the PowerPoint slide to go over that. The first is the free on board, which is FOB, CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, and COD, cash on delivery, bill of lading, agreement between the common carrier and the shipper. And those are the important to determine who are liable during the transferring the material, the product from the manufacturing plant to the construction site. So let's get into uh, today's slides. Then construction labor and material management. The first one, in some of the construction labor law and organization that involved, it actually happened seen 1890 until today, that evolving over time in terms of the labor law and the labor movement. And you can have time, you can go over to a different type of law that apply to labor and what are the labor movement involved. But currently, I just want to show you that uh, the unions, if it have, then the one organization that dictate all of that unions throughout the US, that we call it AFL-CIO. What is that? AFL, American Federation of Labor, and CIO is mean Congress of Industrial Organization. So with that one, I want to go to the website of that to show you some information. So that is AFL-CIO, so the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations. It used to be two separate entities. Now they combined and they work for, as you can see, they represent 12.5 million working men and women in various industry, including construction industry. If you're interested, you can go to his website to show the history of this to correspond to what we saw the history in this slide for the labor. And with that one, we have construction unions within the AFL-CIO. Like I say, AFL-CIO is represent other type of workers. Don't need to be construction unions, but that 15 unions listed here involve construction unions. The first one is Sambo International Association of Bridge structural, ornamental, and reinforcing iron workers. You have a chance to determine the cost, labor cost for the iron workers. And we have multiple of electrical worker for number 4. If I go to the 15, United Union of Roofers, waterproofer, and allied workers. And as you know, it's like faculty at FGCU. They may or may not want to join unions, and currently that is UFF, United uh, Faculty of Florida, UFF. And at GCU, they have a chapter of that, so faculty may join. And of course, to join, you have to pay the fee for that to represent you for the welfare, the construction, the contract, etc. So the operation is similar to construction unions that you have. But like I said, you may or may not choose in here. In Florida, it's more with the free shop, open shop, so not much require unions in construction, but other state it may have highly required for unions, especially the state funded projects. And then we talk about the hourly cost of labor. I give you one example from the project that is a power plant, and what is the job title of the electrician, and how the money involved from multiple time of work, straight time calculation, premium time calculation, all of that here. At the end of the day, the total bill to the owner, and you can see here, is the $104.25, why the worker may receive much less than that. So that you can see that, for example, here, if it's work for standard time, the worker only receives $60.77. If it work overtime in that hours, so $82.41. Why, including fringe benefits, all of that, the bill to clients maybe $100.04 and $104. So you see that the hourly cost is expensive, so that managing the productivity of labor is very important to determine and receive the profit for the project. And we have a chance to do this in problem 1 of today's lessons. Talk about the material. Like I say at the beginning, in the note you have different terminologies: FOB, free on board, CI, cost, insurance, COD, cost on delivery, all of that. And we will talk about that in the next slides. But here, as you can see, the material life cycle for the construction site, we have to order, and then we have to go through the approval process, whether what contractor, what supplier we have to choose, how much we need to be ordered, what is the price should be, so that in the approval process. And then at the plant, they have fabrication and delivery process to make sure that they deliver quality products, meet the specification to the site. And then installation process that happen on construction site. So that is the material life cycle for construction. And through, in terms of planning and execution, as you can see, it from the engineering documents, and have a material take-off, something you have done or you did in project planning, project 1. And then we have schedule, so that is also project 1. Project 2 for your project planning. Now go to this class, you have a control system, build quantity, we have to investigate the supplier, issue purchase order, fabrication, inspection, and deliver on site. On the left, on the right side, receiving, we have storage, issue, and install. Is there any surplus? How can we do with that surplus? Whether we can be able to return to the original supplier, things like that. It always have to be considered. And like I said, several terms that we have talking in the note. Let me go back to here before we get to the last slide and go to the problem 2. free on board, FOB, CIF, costs, insurance and freight, COD, cash on delivery, and bill of lading, agreement between a common carrier and the shipper. So let's go back to this slides so that we have all of that terminology. The first is the CIF, costs, insurance, and freight. So where the title pass to the purchaser. So it's passed to at the vendor location. So the shipment, all of that, it will be the purchaser responsibility. And then if we use the term the cash on delivery, it means the vendor take responsibility for the shipment. Anything happen to that process, that it will be the vendor. So they add the title pass with the payment, and the purchaser receive the material. In this case, can be on-site of construction. So you see that the risk will be allocated differently between the vendor and the purchaser if you go with CIF and COD. The third type of the procurement document and title transfer is the itemized list of all the work in the purchase order. And then we have a bill of lading agreement between the purchaser and the vendor. So the shipment contract between the shipper and the receiver. We have a bill of lading, shipment contract, and then issue the invoice when we receive the items. So with that one, as you can see, the risks during the procurement, the transportation, depends on the terms of the contract, CIF, COD, bill of lading, etc. So with that one, let me apply this to the second problem of today's class, which is the problem 2. And I just already have here a 9 cubic yard concrete truck gets stuck in the traffic and arrive just after the maximum time allowed for the fresh concrete. The project superintendent rejects the concrete, but the driver insists that it's invisible, still in a good shape. However, because of the superintendent refused to accept the concrete, it's dumped nearby the project. Was the superintendent's decision right? Who should pay for this concrete? The superintendent, as you can see, it makes sense. He's right, because that arrived just after the maximum time allowed for the fresh concrete to ensure the project quality. It meets the specification. In this case, he or she, superintendent, has a right to refuse to receive the concrete and place on the project. Who should pay for this concrete? Typically, mostly the concrete plant or producer, but it may determine or depending on the contract, just like I said earlier. So let's go back to here. If you see that if a CIF contract, then the shipment, during the shipment, is the purchaser that the contractor have to pay, because the title passed the purchaser at the vendor location. You see that if it's CIF. COD, cash on delivery, then the producer, the concrete producer, will have to take responsible. Typically, this is the case, COD, for the concrete delivery, because the concrete truck is basically from the producer. That's why I say most likely, but it may happen if the contract to the CIF. So with that one, we move to problem 1 to determine the average cost, hourly cost of time of worker. And before we get to there, I just want to go back here to see what are the labor costs included. Basically 8 items. The first is the direct wages that the worker actually receive, and then fringe benefit, vacation, health, things like that, social security contribution just for the retirement, unemployment insurance, just something like pandemic, and you can see people a lot of people file for employment, so that also affect, by the way, the T in the employment here. Workers' compensation, WC insurance. So in this class, WC stand for workers' compensation, not something else that you're thinking about. And then number 6, public liability and property damage insurance. Public liability insurance, property damage insurance. Subsistence pay, something if we work far away from uh, home or work in the rural area in the middle of nowhere, have incentive for the workers to work, have subsistence pay. Shift pay differential, so overtime or night shift, etc., may pay higher than the day shift. So those are the costs to be considered, and we apply and use all of this to do in the next video for problem 1.